Are you lost in the chaotic whirlwind of day-to-day busyness? Do you yearn for a deeper sense of meaning and purpose in your life? Welcome to Be You, Your Story, Your Purpose, the podcast dedicated to empowering women on their journey of self-discovery and finding their true purpose through their own story. I'm your host, Brenda Simmons. Welcome, my friends, to the podcast. I am so thankful that you have decided to join me here today. I want to talk to you today about the power of anticipation. And in order to do that, I want to share with you some things that I have felt anticipation for. First, when I was a child, we lived in either Arizona or California, and my favorite place to go was my grandparents' farm in Idaho. So that meant it was always a long journey, several hours, either split up over 2 days or done in one very, very long day. And I remember as a kid, when we lived in Arizona, trying to figure out, how am I going to spend the time passing that time of that drive, knowing that we didn't have TVs, we didn't have really anything to I mean, it was like, you will sit here and you're going to be bored. And so because I didn't want to be bored, I wanted to do something. I had all my toys and things that I brought, but I remember doing projects that would help me to pass that time. So one of the things that I did was I created a coloring book, and I'll never forget. It had a pink felt cover to it, and then inside I had stapled several different pages, and I had drawn out different images, and my plan was, while we were driving, that I would color in those images. And so totally homemade coloring book. It helped me pass the time. I really enjoyed it. And I even remember doing that in the car. As I got a little bit older, those activities became a little bit different. We had Walkmans. And so all of a sudden I had music. And so I remember spending hours, what are the cassettes that I'm going to bring, and how am I going to carry it? Oh, I need to get a bigger one because I want to bring more music. Or do I have enough batteries for my Walkman? Do I have my headphones? Is everything working right? And again, preparing for that trip, knowing that at the end was something really joyous. And as I experienced that, trying to get through just past that time, I knew that we were getting closer and closer and closer to my favorite place in the whole wide world. And as we did get closer, I would watch for different landmarks. So we'd always come up. The farm was on it's on a farm, so it's in the middle of nowhere between Burley and Twin Falls, Idaho. And so I remember crossing the Snake River just outside of Burley, Idaho, and then turning off of the freeway and onto the frontage road, and then turning on the road that would take me to grandma's house. And I always knew that it was my grandma's road because there was this two poles. So it was basically like two trees. You can imagine two trees without any branches, right? So just gigantic sticks, and with another one crossing the top. So it made like an upside down U. And on the very top of that was this life-size tractor. And I have no idea how they got it up there or how they got it to stay, but and maybe it wasn't a life-size, but to my childhood brain, it sure looked really, really big. And it was super rusty. But I always knew that was the landmark. That is how I knew where to turn to my grandma's house. And as we went up the road that led to my grandma's house, it was hilly, go up and down, and up more than down. And at one point we even had to cross over these railroad tracks, and we had to go really slow over the railroad tracks because there were some pins that weren't nailed down all the way. And so you had to be really careful going over them, or else it would ruin your tires. So we'd go slowly over those, and then we'd go further and up the hill. And I always knew it was my grandma's house because there's this grove of pine trees. And then next to the pine trees was a little white house. It was the original house that they lived on when they first moved to the farm. And it's just a little tiny square, super, super small. And then right next to that was a red brick home. And obviously, being a farm, there was lots of land around it, always a big garden. They had cows, so many wonderful things. And as we got closer and closer and closer to my grandparents' home, my excitement would grow. And I just remember just bouncing and just being like, are we there yet? Can we just get there? It's going to be so much fun. I can't wait to see my grandma and well, my grandpa too. But my grandma was a little bit more enthusiastic, we'll say. And so I loved this because I knew that this excitement was a reflection of being or going to a place where I felt loved and it was safe and it was fun. And I always wanted to be there. Now, as an adult, I don't always have these experiences or as often, right? They seem to happen a lot more as or at least for me when I was a child. But I have found that the principle of looking forward to something and anticipating an event is super powerful. Now, I did mention that I don't have them as often, but I think it's important to identify the ones that you do. So, for example, my husband has been spending the winter in Arizona. I live in Utah, and this has been really hard for both of us. And we made that decision because he had some work down there, but primarily because he's got asthma and the cold and the pollution here really makes it hard for him to go outside. And so rather than stay at home like he had done in the past, we decided it would be better for him to do this work down in Arizona, which has been a total blessing for us. But again, the separation has been really hard on us. And so he decided last week that he was going to come home. And for 3 or 4 days, I just was like, well, it wasn't even that long because he bought the ticket, the plane ticket, and then he was home in 2 days. And so for those 2 days, I felt this just pure anticipation and excitement for my husband to come home because I hadn't seen him in almost a month. And so that was super fun. Another time I have felt this recently was last fall. I was able to take a trip to Italy with a friend of mine. And that was so much fun to prepare for that and to anticipate the fun and being with her and seeing all these really cool things that I have never seen before. So I think it's important to identify, what are those things that cause you to feel that anticipation. Now, in a little bit, we're going to talk about creating those moments and what they need to have in order to have this anticipation. So, what is anticipation? Anticipation is excited expectation. So, it's knowing that something is going to happen and feeling excited about that. So, how is it then that anticipation is powerful? Well, here's what I have found just in my own experience and my own observation. And you might have something else that you can add to this. So think about that as I'm going through this. So, motivation or anticipation motivates us to do things that we wouldn't normally do. So, for example, when I was a little girl and I wanted to put together that coloring book, right? That's not something that I normally would have done, but in anticipation of the event and what was going to be happening, I knew that I wanted to do this project. And so that's what I did. And so think about those things that you are excited about. What is it about them that makes you want to accomplish different projects, right? And these aren't always projects that are necessarily work, but perhaps at work you are motivated then to get projects done at work so that you can go on or when this event happens that you will have a free brain in order to fully experience that thing. So number 2, anticipation engages our problem-solving brain in a low stress and fun way. And I really love this one. So when I went to Italy, we decided that we were going to go very minimally. This meant that we were only going to carry whatever we could on our back. So we weren't going to have big luggage and I'm so glad we did this because there's so many steps. You walk so much in Italy that this is really the only way to go. But I had no idea how to do this. I've only done luggage packing. And so I had to think about, okay, what are the things that I use on a daily basis? How can I shrink them down? And what kind of container can I put them in? How am I going to handle laundry? Because we were there for 10 days. And so obviously I couldn't bring 10 days worth of clothing. I was going to have to do laundry in the middle of it. And so all of those things created these fun problems to solve. And so that was a really fun project before the event happened that really helped to engage that problem solving side of my brain. And that was honestly part of the fun of that trip was just figuring out how to actually do it. All right, so anticipation also helps us to focus on what we're doing now. So I kind of alluded to this on motivating us to do things we wouldn't normally do. It and even though it's related, I think it's a little bit different. So it actually motivates us to do what we're already doing, but in a less amount of time. So really what this means is you get into a flow a little bit easier because you know you've got that deadline coming up and you know that, okay, you're whatever it is going to happen, you are and you want to be fully present with it. So that means you've got to prepare to get all of that done. So I really love that about anticipation. So this is one that I think is really important. This next one. So anticipation helps you to visualize positively. Positivity. So you're visualizing positivity. So this is what I mean by that. There are a lot of people, and me included, when I first started visualizing, who really struggle knowing how to do this. So how do you visualize something, right? So we learn about or at least I learned about visualization when I'm doing sports, and they say, "Oh, you practice, but then you think about how to do it in your brain," right? So, but a lot of people struggle with how do you visualize something that you want when it doesn't exist, right? And so when you anticipate something, it kind of puts your brain in that thing that's going to happen. And so we start thinking about, oh, what are the things you're going to see? What are the things you're going to do? What are the smells that you might experience? Who are you going to talk to? And how are they going to react? Are there any textures that you're going to experience? So for example, if you are anticipating going to, let's just say Disneyland, right? And you start thinking, oh, even if you've never been there, right? You can think about, oh, what's it going to be like to see the Magic Kingdom? Or what's it going to be like to ride on the roller coasters? And you start thinking about how that might be. And so we start doing this role play inside of our brain that is really super creative. And it is the seeds of knowing how to visualize when we want to put that into play later. And so, for example, when I was going to my grandma's house, I would think about all the things that I would be doing. So I was going to be feeding the cows. I was going to play with the cats. I was going to go for walks. I was going to pet the neighbors' horses. And we were going to have so much fun doing that. And I remember thinking about the smell. My grandma's house had this smell to it. I mean, not a bad smell, but it was grandma's house smell. And the cows had a smell to them. And a lot of people don't like cow smell. To me, it's very nostalgic. And so I kind of like that. So not kind of, I do. I will fully admit I like cow smell because it is reminiscent of going to my grandma's house and it has very, very happy memories associated with it. When I thought about who I was going to talk to, my grandparents, I had cousins, I had aunts and uncles, and I think about the texture of my grandma's avocado green shag carpet with the brown floral couches, and I could see that in my mind's eye. And so as I am, you know, I could totally visualize the whole thing happening. And so as you practice visualizing something that you are really excited about, you can then transfer that into, okay, this is a goal that you might have and or something that you want to have or something you want to do or whatever the case may be. So you can use that skill and piggyback on what that is like for something that you're anticipating to something that you want to accomplish. And so I encourage you to use that skill to develop that or use this process to develop that skill. All right, so the next one is as you then are thinking positively about whatever it is you're anticipating, that energy becomes super contagious. Now, there's two ways it's contagious. One is internally, and I know you might think that's kind of weird, but it's true. So as you start thinking about it, your emotions start getting really excited, and you'll find that maybe you're bouncing. Remember how I said I was bouncing in my seat and just having a great time, just even thinking about going to my grandparents' house. So internally, there is a positive contagious factor to anticipation. There's also an external factor as well, meaning as we start feeling this joy and this excitement, it becomes contagious to other people, and they start feeling that as well. So we often hear that anticipation is often better than the thing we are anticipating. And I think that these reasons are why, because there's so many positive things that come from the power of anticipation. Now, there are some rules for creating something to anticipate if you want to create this yourself. Number one, you need to make it big enough that there is an effort to accomplish it. And so it's something that you've got to put a little bit of work into. So now when I was a kid, I didn't necessarily have to work, so to speak, at getting to my grandparents' house. My parents brought me there. However, there was work in preparing my own things to do for the drive, right? There was preparing to go to Italy. There was preparing for my husband to come home. So it has to be big enough that you have to have put some effort into accomplishing it, because that effort is part of the fun. You also need to make it adventurous. So, what I mean by this is it's got to be something that's outside of your normal daily routine. We don't typically find things that happen every day super exciting. And so, you've got to find something that is outside of that so that you can have that feeling of anticipation. And then lastly, you need to make it fun. So true fun. So not fake fun where you're just planning to watch TV or spend time on your phone, right? So it can be something, easy enough as just going on a walk with a friend, right? That can be something that you can anticipate, especially if you haven't seen that friend in a long time. So I'm reading a book right now called The Power of Fun by Catherine Price. Super good book. I will throw the link to this book in my show notes. But she says that in order to have true fun, you need to have three things involved in whatever you're doing. The first one is playfulness, the second is connection, and the third is flow. So when you've got, and you can have fun with all of those things, but if you can incorporate all three of those, playfulness, connection, and flow, then it is truly a recipe for true fun and also for positive anticipation. All right, so what can you expect when you are experiencing this anticipation? Well, number one, you're going to get more done in less time. And this is something that we've talked about. You're going to get in the flow where you are on fire and you're getting things done. So it really helps you to focus because you know you've got that deadline. Number two, your positive energy will attract people and opportunities. So this is just something that happens when you have that positive energy. Remember how I said it was contagious. So other people will be attracted. They're going to ask you, well, hey, what's going on? Why are you so excited? And have you ever asked somebody, hey, what are you excited about these days? Like, that's such a fun question. So we talked about that earlier on our podcast, and it was something that I started doing, and I think it is such a fun question. Hey, what are you excited about? So super fun. So you will, and when people are attracted to you, then opportunities will follow in their wake. And so you will find that. Number three to expect from experiencing anticipation is you are going to have a heightened ability to notice the details. Now, remember all of those details that I noticed going to my grandma and grandpa's house. So those were all things that I would notice on my way. And I came to learn very quickly, very young, that those were the landmarks that led to my grandma's house. And so as you are going through this process of anticipation, you're going to start to notice details in your life because you have that anticipation feeling inside of you. Number 4, you're going to feel a sense of fulfilled purpose. And I think this comes from all of those things that you're getting done because you're doing this other thing and you're so excited about it. And as you are active in accomplishing all of these things, you start feeling really good about yourself and really good about what you are doing in life. All right. And last, you are going to feel a sense of accomplishment, right? So very similar to the last one, but this one's a little bit different because it is not just reflected on the anticipation of what you're doing, but then as well being able to plan and execute something that brings you joy in your life. So I hope you found some value in that. I hope you find something that you can be excited about and feel that sense of anticipation and go on and be all that you can be. I think that's a military slogan, but it works here too. So so if you found value in this, please like it, please subscribe, please share it if you know somebody that can benefit from this. It is truly the greatest compliment to me when you do all of those things. And remember that your purpose is found in your story. Until next time, bye bye.
Celebrate your dreams, let them take flight, for you are a star, shining bright in every step you take. Let your